Hi again. Remember the thicket where Moomin Troll found a special place and he felt that he was justified or correct in thinking that he could keep that place for himself, but it was filled with someone else who was living there at the time, the red ants. And that was in the thicket. And you remember the picture of the thicket? So he goes to find out what he should do. And so he asked Moomin Papa, and he came to Moomin Papa to ask him about what he should do with the ants. And he said, Papa, but Moomin Papa was not listening, because just at that moment he had got the right grip on a big round boulder. He got the right grip. Get a grip. And with a great thud, it rolled down the slope. It made two very clear sparks and left a faint but enchanting smell of gunpowder behind. Now it was lying at the bottom, just where it should lie. It was wonderful to roll stones, first pushing with all one's might, then feeling them beginning to move just a little at first and a little more, and then giving way and rolling into the sea with a colossal splash, leaving one standing there trembling with effort and pride. And Moomin Troll shouted, Papa! Moomin Papa turned round and waved to his son. He said, it's lying there just where it should lie. He said, this is going to be a jetty, a kind of breakwater, to break the stones piled up in the water to stop the waves. Moomin Papa waded out into the sea and with a great deal of puffing and blowing began to roll another boulder, even larger, along the bottom, with his nose right under the water. Moomin Papa wondered why that lifting and rolling stones under the water was easier. But the great thing was that it made one feel tremendously strong. And Moomin Troll shouted, I want to ask you something. It's about the red ants. It's important. Can one talk to ants? Do you think they would understand if I put up a notice for them? Could they read my notice? Here's a picture of Moomin Troll looking at Moomin Papa, and Moomin Papa's making the jetty, the breakwater. There's Moomin Papa pushing boulders. There's Moomin Troll watching. This is my bookmark. Paper clip. Could they read it if I left them a notice? Moomin Papa said in amazement, red ants? Of course they can't read. They wouldn't understand a thing. Now, I must find a three-cornered stone to put in between these two large ones. A breakwater has to be strong. It must be built by someone who knows all about the sea. Papa went on wading with his nose in the water. Moomin Troll went higher up the beach and stood where he could see Moomin Mama. She was crawling about in her garden. She was spreading out seaweed. Her paws and apron were quite brown, and she radiated happy concentration. Moomin Troll went up to her and said, Mama, just try to imagine a perfectly marvelous spot that you found and made your very own, only to discover that there are crowds of other people there who don't want to move away. Have they the right to stay put, although they don't understand how beautiful the place is? Have they the right to stay put? And Moomin Papa said, well, yes, of course they have. And she sat down in the seaweed. And Moomin Troll said, but what if they would be just as happy in a rubbish heap? And Moomin Mama said, well, then one would have to reason with them and perhaps give them a hand with the moving. It's very trying to have to move if one has lived in the same place for a long time. And Moomin Troll said, oh, bother, where's little My? Moomin Mama answered, she's somewhere up at the lighthouse building some sort of lift. A lift, like an elevator. Little My was hanging perilously out of the open north window, as bold as brass. That's a funny expression, isn't it? I guess brass is pretty bold. She was knocking a nail into a block of wood on the window ledge. On the floor, there was a whole pile of gray-looking things, and the trap door was open. Seems that the gray things fell out through the trap door. And Moomin Troll asked, what do you think Papa will say about this? No one's allowed up there. It's his private room. And Little My said nonchalantly, there's a loft above his private room. A jolly nice little loft where you can find all sorts of things. Hey, hand me that nail. I'm fed up with climbing up those stairs every time we have to eat, so I'm building a lift. You can haul me up in a basket, or else lower the food down to me. That would be even better. Moomin Troll thought, how she carries on. She does exactly what she feels like doing, and no one opposes her. She just does it. He said, by the way, the thicket. There's no one there. No one at all. Possibly a few ants. Little My said, really? I can well believe it. So that was that. She banged a nail right in, whistling between her teeth. And Moomin Troll shouted in between hammer strokes, you'll have to clear up all this mess before Papa comes back. But he had a feeling he hadn't made an impression at all. He poked about dejectedly in the gray pile of old paper, tins, old fishing nets, woolen gloves, and bits of seal skin. And that's how he found the calendar, a large wall calendar with a wonderful picture of a seahorse riding on a wave in the moonlight. The moon was dipping into the sea, at least it looked like it, and the seahorse had long golden hair and very pale, unfathomable eyes. How could anyone paint so beautifully? Moomin Troll put the picture on the desk and gazed at it for a long time. Jumping down the floor, Little My said, it's 5 years old, that calendar. It's out of date. The days are quite different now, and someone's torn them off anyway. Hey, hold the rope, and I'll go down and see if this lift works. And Moomin Troll said, wait a minute, there's something I want to ask you. What does one do to get ants to move? And Little My said, dig them up, obviously. Oh, no, said Moomin Troll. I mean, to get them to go away. Little My looked at him. After a while, she said, I see. So you found a spot you like in that thicket, and it's full of ants. What will you give me if I get rid of them? Moomin Troll felt his nose turn red. Little My said calmly, I'll fix it for you. You can go there and look after a day or two, and if you can look after the lift for me instead. I'm off. Moomin Troll stood still, feeling miserable. The secret was out. His hideout was not now just any old place. He looked quickly at the calendar, straight into the seahorse's eyes. He thought, we're alike, you and I. We understand each other. We care only about beautiful things. I shall get my glade, and nothing else matters. But just at the moment, I don't want to think about it. Little Mai pulled on the rope down below. "Pull me up," she shouted, "and don't let go. Think of your ants." Because she's going to take care of the ants. The lift worked perfectly. Actually, she had never supposed it would do anything else. Okay, the video is at over 10 minutes, getting close to 11, so I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to read another chapter after I come back.